Over the past year, I've had the opportunity to sit down with collegiate athletes, professional athletes, coaches, broadcasters, and people from all different walks of life through this podcast. And while every conversation has been different, there are certain lessons and themes that continue to come up over and over again. A lot of those lessons have challenged the way I think about confidence, discipline, leadership, failure, relationships, and even identity outside of sports. Some of them have come from guests on the show, and some have come from experiences in my own life through baseball, broadcasting, podcasting, and just trying to figure things out in my early 20s. So for this episode, I want to do something just a little different. Instead of interviewing a guest, I wanted to sit down and reflect on some of the biggest lessons I've learned from these conversations and from my own journey so far. This isn't me pretending to have life figured out. Honestly, I'm still learning a lot of this in real time. And a lot of the things that I say I wish I knew earlier in life are things that I also need to know now. But these are ideas, quotes, and perspectives that have genuinely impacted the way I approach sports, work, relationships, adversity, and life as a whole. So, with that being said, let's get into it. So, real quick recap on why I started this podcast was I was fresh out of college, had no clue what I wanted to do. And like any unemployed former college baseball player, I was just sitting on the couch watching ESPN, listening to the analysts, the talking heads, and there were a few of them that were talking quite negatively about athletes. And that just struck a nerve in my brain. And I thought, that's something I want to get into. I want to find my way into sports talk and I want to grow up that ladder. And I want to get there and I want to talk more positively about athletes. And not only that, I want to highlight the stories of athletes and show people what they're really going through day to day and the mental side of whatever sport it may be. Whoever I've had as a guest, I want to hear about the mental side of their sport. Baseball, we've had basketball, we've had football, gymnastics, softball, we've had it all. And I just wanted to hear about their story and their mentality. So I got into it, started this, got the opportunity at a sports radio station where I've continuously been on air and spoken to athletes, about athletes, highlighting the importance of mental health in sports. And now on my next journey, I will continue this podcast, but I'm enrolled in an EMT course with the goal of becoming a firefighter in mind. I want to do something that's impactful and I want to do something that is hard and not going to be easy every single day. And that's one of the things we'll get into. But just from the conversations I've had, one of my favorite things that continuously feels like it gets brought up in the podcast, and I've noticed in my own life, is that confidence comes from evidence. Confidence comes from consistent work and reputation. Dealing with younger athletes as a coach this past year, there were guys that I could tell weren't very confident in the box, but I also didn't see them after practice getting work in the cages or not going out of their way to make themselves better. But then the guys that had a lot of success on the field were the ones that were getting extra reps. They were really working hard in the weight room. And I think of it as having just your own resume. If I have to have a resume that gives me confidence and I can say, I told myself that I was going to show up to the weight room at least 3 days a week, and I did that. That builds confidence. I told myself I was going to hit, and I'm going to have statistics that aren't going to be arbitrary based on the game. They're going to be statistics that I can keep track of. So let's say I barrel 5 balls in the cage in a row. That's the statistic that gives me confidence that when a game comes, I can do it. And one thing that I heard that ties along with this is, imagine you had a friend who you met for lunch every single Wednesday. And on Wednesday, they would always show up late or they wouldn't show up at all. You would start to lose trust in your friend. Now think of that friend as yourself. Yourself is the person that you're talking to most of the day, you're with most of the day, the whole entire day. And imagine you didn't show up for things you said you would. You didn't show up to the weight room. You didn't show up to work on time. You didn't get the extra work in you needed to be successful. You're not going to have respect for yourself. You're not going to have trust in yourself and you're going to lack confidence. But if you have the evidence that you can show up day in and day out and do the hard things, that's going to result in confidence. And I think back to my play-by-play experience. I had the opportunity to play-by-play Nebraska State high school basketball down at Pinnacle Bank Arena here in Nebraska at the tournament. And first day, I sounded terrible, had no clue what I was doing. I was stumbling over my words consistently. And then doing 7 games and getting to the championships on the Saturday, I felt so much more confident because I could look back and go, all right, this is what I did wrong. I can sound a little better here. This is going well. And so the more evidence you put in, the easier it is to be confident. So that's number one. Number two, fear is a waste of time. This is something that might come off a little controversial, but there are times in life that there definitely should be fear. You know, if you're going into a dangerous situation, you should have a little bit of fear. You shouldn't just waltz your way in there and think everything's going to be okay. But from an athletic standpoint, this is something I wish I knew way earlier in my career, is the fear of something going wrong is not going to make it go right. I remember pregame before my games in college, I would be so stressed. I would be thinking to myself, what happens if I go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts? What are my teammates going to think of me? What's my coach going to think of me? Am I going to play the next day? Am I going to be in the lineup? And all those things were going through my head. But as those things were going through my head, nothing about that was going to change the outcome. And if anything, those negative thoughts were going to make the outcome worse. And there were plenty of times where I'd go into games where I was unbelievably nervous. What if I am the worst player on the field today? And then I'd end up getting a hit or two and feeling great. And after that success, it made me realize this worrying isn't helping me whatsoever. And it's really not affecting the result. And if it does, it's a negative effect on it. So a few examples, like I said, are pregame nerves, worrying about what other people think. And there's always going to be uncertainty. Into the future, you never know exactly what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen going into a game or a tough meeting with your boss or a tough conversation with a friend. There's always going to be uncertainty. And it's a choice whether you attack that uncertainty with fear or confidence. So when it gets down to it, might as well be confident in yourself and look back at that evidence, at that resume and go, yeah, I've had tough conversations before. I've played in tough games before and I've had success in those. I can do this. I can do it again. Cole Ehrman in just the last episode said, rather than being scared of what could happen, be present every single day. If you're present in the right now, you can't worry about what's going to happen in the future. You can't worry what's going to happen in the next series or the next game if you're focused on this one right here. Next up, discipline over motivation. You will not always feel motivated. Motivation comes and goes. This is something I've struggled with plenty of times. There's times where I'll be scrolling on Instagram Reels and I'll see a highlight video of Kobe Bryant or David Goggins, and they're saying some inspirational stuff about waking up at 5 a.m, doing the hard thing. If you want to achieve your goal, you have to do all these extraordinary things to do it. And that lasted about a day or two. And then I would go, this is hard. I don't want to wake up this early. I'm not feeling motivated. And so when the motivation goes out the window, what do you got? You need to have discipline. Motivation, I will do it because I feel like it. Discipline, I will do it because it is who I am. I am the person that tells myself I'm going to go to the gym this many days and I'm going to show up for a friend when needed, when they need me. I'm going to have the tough conversation when I have to. I'm going to do all these things, not because I have the motivation that day, but because I made a promise to myself that I'm going to do hard things. I'm going to go out of my way to prove myself right, that I'm someone that I can trust. When I say I'm going to show up, I will. Motivation helps you start. Discipline keeps you going long after motivation disappears. And I think that's 100% accurate, is if you're always relying on motivation, that's going to come and go. And so will your results and so will your success. But if you're consistently disciplined and do what you say you're going to do, and you may not see the results right away. You may not get to the gym and lose a whole bunch of pounds or get absolutely jacked, but it's over multiple months span. You're going to look at pictures back in yourself and go, wow, I was disciplined and I've made huge strides. Next up, leadership is earned. This is one that I've spoke with a whole bunch of athletes about, especially speaking with quarterbacks, with catchers, all kinds of athletes. I can think back to Max Browning, who is an analyst now for ESPN, quarterback, 5-star quarterback out of high school, went to USC, ended up at Pitt. And he talked about, as a quarterback, your leadership can't just be through the actions. People follow consistency before they follow words. So as much as it's important to be a vocal leader, especially in a quarterback role where you have everyone looking at you, you're the guy with the ball, especially when the going gets tough. you have to show consistency if you really want people to follow you in order to believe in you. And so what does that mean? That means, like we talked about, showing up on time, checking in on your teammates, leading by example. So when you're in the weight room, you're not the guy that's taken a rep or a set off. You're the one that is showing everyone this is the standard. In order to win, this is the standard we must have. Talking to Tommy Armstrong, a guy who leads Nebraska in so many career statistics as a quarterback, he just said he walked into the locker room and it was a standard of winning. You showed up to the weight room and you were finding ways to win in every single thing you do. So it was winning in the classroom, it was winning in the weight room, during conditioning, on the field, during practice. It was all of it. And so he earned that leadership not by just going through the motions, but earning it by saying, I'm a guy that's going to do all the hard things right. Be someone you would follow before trying to lead others. I think that's something that's super important and can get people really far. And leaders are always people we look up to. And I think anyone can be a leader. If you have a good culture, whether this is at work, whether this is on a team, if you have a good culture where everyone feels like they can hold each other accountable because they all hold the same high standard, that team is going to have so much success. Comparison kills confidence. Social media, stats, followers, recruiting, money. One of the fastest ways to lose confidence is consistently pairing your life to somebody else's. And I think that's so accurate. I think to my time growing up, I have had Max Anderson on the podcast multiple times. Absolutely love Max. He's killing it in the Detroit Tigers organization. Had the opportunity to watch him a few weeks ago in AAA. But Max has always been an unbelievable baseball player. And we grew up together, played on the same team since we were 10, all the way up through high school. And I compared myself to Max all the time. So if I went 2 for 4 in a game, 500 batting average, and Max went 3 for 4, I would think I'm not good enough. I'm not doing things right, which is crazy. I had a great day, but I always compared it to someone else. And so I lost so much confidence because I never, after those games, gave myself a little pat on the back and said, great job. Like, you saw the ball really well in those 2 at-bats. You hit the ball hard. It would always be, well, I'm terrible compared to Max. I suck compared to Max. And I just thought that was so interesting to look back on and go, you never appreciate what you've done when you're too busy worrying about what someone else's life is. And in all honesty, they're not worrying about you at all. I would always, in inner squats, compare myself to everyone else's stats. But then if you asked me how they did, I was so invested in my own day, I couldn't really tell. And then they were so invested in their own stats that they couldn't really tell. But I would always compare myself to the guys that were doing great, which maybe sometimes makes you want to work harder and say, oh, I want to get to where that guy is. I want to be the starter. So I need to compare myself to, that's the standard to be the starting shortstop. And so if I want to be there, I have to do what this guy's doing. Great. But so many times there's no reason to compare yourself on social media to all this glitz and glamour that people are posting. You're comparing 1% of someone else's life on social media to 100% of your life. You're not seeing the ups and the downs that this person has. You're only seeing the ups. You're seeing the greatest thing about them. You're not seeing the struggles. Do you want the struggles for? Is the goal that you have in mind, would you go through the struggles for all of that? And if it is, then it's worth it. But back to comparison. Comparison makes you forget how hard you have worked, how far that you've come. And so don't compare your real life to someone else's highlight reel. There are definitely moments where I look at creators and broadcasters and think, man, they're so much farther ahead than me. But every time I focus on that too much, I stop appreciating my own progress. That was something I wrote just going into this. Next up, relationships matter more than you think. I had a great conversation with Bryant Ferrati. He was the strength coach at the University of Portland during my time there. And he always talked about this. Before every single weight session, he would just go around asking guys, how are you doing? Like, what's new? What's good with you? It was never just, hey, how are you? Just small talk. He actually was super invested. And he always just said, you're not going to remember all of your games that you played in. You're not going to remember every single bat, every single pitch, but you're going to look back at your career and your time on any team and think, who are the people that I really respected and who are the people that made me feel really good about myself? And I can look back at that Portland team and name dozens of guys that made a great impact on me and I now will have lifelong friends in. but people remember how you make them feel. They don't remember, your status at the time. They don't remember if you hit 400. They don't remember that. They remember the guy that showed up when you needed them. And he talks to me about there are so many things in life that we don't really have control over. He talked to me about adult friendship, which I thought this was pretty interesting, so I'm going to dive into it real quick. He sent me an article. Family is structured by blood, marriage by institution, work relationships through utility. Friendship survives purely through mutual choosing. Nobody has to stay, and yet some people do. Friendship is a choice. The ones who are there when needed most do not do it because they have to. They do it because they care. And so as you get older, I think that's something that's just cool to reflect on is your friends are all out of choice. On a Saturday night when you hang out with your friends, they could easily go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go out my way for you. Or if you're really struggling, they choose every single time to show up. And that's what true friendship is. And so I think at times we take friendship for granted and just say, yeah, like I've known this guy forever. This is sweet. But when you think deeply about it, of these people made a choice to be there for you. And we've made a choice for years and years to keep in contact and make sure that we're both doing okay and that we enjoy the time together. I think it's so cool just to look back at and say how cool some of our friends are and how cool that friendship is. Next up, do hard things. This is my favorite thing right now. I absolutely love it. I have been thinking about this for a while, especially on my path to becoming a firefighter. So I'm actually done with my job this week and I'm enrolled in an EMT course on the path to becoming a firefighter. I was sitting at a desk job. I was selling advertising, first job out of college, did not love it, but learned a lot 100% and met some great people, but didn't love it and wanted to do something that was more on my feet, that isn't me sitting at a desk, and then makes a huge direct impact. And I couldn't think of anything better than becoming a firefighter and putting your life on the line for people that really need help and helping people most likely on the worst days of their lives. So that was one of the things when it came to doing hard things. And anytime I've had a little bit of doubt about, oh gosh, this is going to be hard, I think the alternative, which is, or I could just keep sitting at a desk all day doing something I'm not passionate about. And that makes it pretty easy. But I love this quote from Andrew Huberman. We should do self elected hard things so when non elected challenges arise, and they will, I can tell myself, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I know I can do hard things. Goes back to the resume that you build up. I think of my mom. She did a 50-mile march for veteran suicide awareness, and 22 veterans commit suicide a day. And so my mom did something really hard. She walked 50 miles in 22 hours with weight on her back to raise awareness for this. And after I told her, I was extremely proud of her because there are so many people that say they're going to do things. They're going to run the marathon or they're going to do the 50-mile march. They're going to do whatever, but then they never do it. And I have so much respect for people that go out of their way to do hard things. And when I think of when hard moments come into my mom's life, I know that she can handle them. And I think for so many other people too, the people that are disciplined, that go to the gym, especially when they don't want to, they do hard things or have hard conversations. When those non-elected challenges arise, when someone loses a job or loses a loved one and they're trying to get through it, they've been through hard times before. They now know that they have a resume they can back on is go, I can do this. I can get through hard times. So do hard things. That's something I absolutely love. And I'll be honest, anytime I do something hard, I feel so fulfilled. I think of any time I've run. My girlfriend's training for a marathon and she needed to run 7 miles on a Sunday. So I said, I'll do it with you. I've never run 7 miles in my life. I got through it, felt terrible, but after that, felt like I could conquer the world. So do hard things, adds to the confidence. And then when non-elected challenges arise, you're ready for them. Choice of pain. Another quote that I absolutely love. There are two pains in life, the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Another thing I've thought about as my journey to becoming a firefighter comes on is I could tell myself, yeah, when I'm 28, when I'm 27, if I want to become a firefighter, then I'll do it then. But then I've talked to a lot of people who have said they wish they would have switched jobs when they were in their early 20s and they wish they would have traveled here or they would have taken that leap of faith and that risk. And so they have the pain of regret and the pain of discipline of waking up early and going to the gym, or, getting having a hard conversation. The pain of anything, the pain of discipline is always going to be the better option than the pain of regret. So that's something I've thought about whenever I, don't want to go to the gym, or there's something hard I got on my plate. Is I told myself, this is who I am, this is what I do. And I don't want to look back and be out of shape in 5 to 10 years and go have the regret of not working out. So there are two pains in life: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Today's episode is brought to you by Relight Hydration, my go-to for staying fueled and refreshed. As a former athlete, I know how important it is to stay hydrated. And Relight makes it simple with clean ingredients and essential electrolytes. My two favorite flavors: lemon lime for that crisp, classic kick, and mixed berry when I want something a little sweeter. Whether it's before a workout, during a long day, or after training, Relight keeps me going. You can try it yourself and get 15% off with my code Athletes Mindset at checkout. That's Athletes Mindset for 15% off at Relight. Stay sharp, stay hydrated. I never thought that I couldn't. I'm not sure if you can guess who said that, but it was Lightning McQueen when asked when he showed up to his first race, how did he know that he could? How did he know he could do it? And his answer was, I never thought that I couldn't. And that's one thing that it's from a kid's movie, one of my favorite movies growing up, but I absolutely loved is whenever you are pursuing something hard, you're pursuing something that takes risk, a new path, a new journey. There's always going to be those doubts that, slowly creep in. But I keep just reminding myself of, I know I can do this. I never thought that I couldn't. I know I'm going to be successful one day. I know people don't talk like that and people don't want to, overhype themselves or anything like that. But I think it's important for people to have confidence, think that they can be the best, think that there's no one that can beat them. There's no one that can be better than him. And I absolutely love that from Lightning McQueen. Just a quote that I saw pop up on my feed the other day of a Lightning McQueen edit saying, I never thought that I couldn't. And so when it comes to being the best, being successful, I think everyone should believe that exact Lightning McQueen quote of, I never thought that I couldn't. Confidence sometimes isn't saying, I know I'll succeed. It's saying, I refuse to count myself out before I even try. Kind of similar to that quote from Lightning there. I've talked about this plenty, the third person POV, and I just want to reiterate. When I did my last episode solo, I talked about this, and I absolutely always think about it all the time, especially when I am feeling kind of low on myself or being kind of hard on myself, is treat yourself as you would treat a friend. If I go up to the plate and I strike out and I'm telling myself in my head, I'm terrible, I'm the worst. But then my best friend or the guy hitting behind me goes up to bat and he strikes out. There's no part of me that's saying he's the worst, he's terrible. You say, all right, he's going to get the next one. Treat yourself the same way. We always talk about treat others how you want to be treated. But I think it's just important to treat yourself how you treat others, because 99% of the time you treat others with a ton of respect and you're very positive about them. So treat yourself how you treat others. Personal philosophy. In my conversation with my strength coach, we touched on this a little bit, is just write down who you are and the values that you have and who you want to become. And you can write out some values that, and be honest about it, is that aren't helping you right now. Think about your year of 2026 right now. If the rest of the year went exactly how it is right now, which if there's no change, it's going to, are you happy with that? Have you made new strides? Have you done something new? Have you done something that's hard? Have you done anything that has made you feel fulfilled or your days feel a little different or made you happier? If you haven't, then write that down and go, all right, what are some things that I could add on, or some values or little things I could add to my day that would make the rest of my 2026 be great? We're almost halfway through already. It feels like it's flown by, but I think it's just important to write down thoughts about yourself. If you do not consciously define your values, the world will define them for you. And there's a power in sitting down and honestly writing out who you want to be, what you value, how you treat people, what kind of life do you want to live. And I think that's super valuable. I do a journal every single day. I just do 3 wins of the day. Previously, something I'm grateful for, something to improve on, and the most important thing. And writing those 3 wins and something I'm grateful for has made me realize how great my life is and how there's times that I really do take it for granted, and just how many great people I am surrounded by an unbelievable support system that I have. And speaking with tons of athletes on this podcast, they all talk about having a great support system and the people that are always pushing them to be the best and help them out when, they're at their worst or when they're really struggling. So be sure to check in on someone. And for your personal philosophy, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't think you have to be the perfect person, but definitely write that out. And I think it'll give you some clarity on where you are right now, compared to where you want to be. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Athlete's Mindset. I appreciate all the support and everyone who continues to grow alongside me through this podcast. I definitely don't have everything figured out, barely have anything figured out, but these are some lessons and perspectives that have genuinely impacted my life. And I hope something from this episode resonated with you. If one thing resonated with you, that's a win. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might find it valuable. Keep moving forward. See you next time.